Hey y'all, welcome to the Coyote Trapping School Podcast. In this episode, I wanted to talk about an easy way, a cheap, easy way to get started in trapping. So a couple episodes ago, we covered the topic of the cost of getting into trapping, and I'm mainly talking about predator trapping. So talking about coyotes, bobcats, foxes, raccoons, things like that. But what you can catch all of those with, and it's not an inexpensive. It's not a cheap thing to get into. There's definitely time and serious money costs in there. I mean, the consensus was you're looking at $300-500 to get started. That doesn't include waders, boots, a vehicle, a gun, things like that. That kind of take for granted that most of us, if we're hunters, if we're interested in trapping, we probably got that stuff to begin with. But there's some people I'm sure that don't. So that's, and I guess kind of not knowing what all goes into it, I could definitely see where somebody would be hesitant about jumping in and dropping $500 to get traps and all, and then realize as you get into it what all, because it's a lot of work. There's no doubt about that. But there is a really cheap, I don't say cheap, but a lot less expensive way to dabble in trapping and see how you like it. And I think I really like it. I think it's a great way to get kids involved. If you've got a deer camp and you go, every weekend during deer season or something like that to the hunt camp, this is something that you can do, in conjunction with that. Check a handful of traps during the middle of the day while you're waiting, and get kids involved. And so what I'm talking about is using DogProof raccoon traps. And so here's an example of a DogProof raccoon trap right here. And these are really simple and easy to use, very effective with catching raccoons and a handful of other things. You can catch possums with them. I've caught a gray fox in one. You can catch skunks. You can catch more than raccoons, but you can really easily set them to target coons. And so, like I say, that's one great way that you can kind of dabble in it, get a handful, maybe get 6 traps and start doing it. If you've got some deer feeders at your deer lease, guaranteed you got coons coming in and stealing your corn. So you could buy a half dozen dog-proof traps and probably recoup that in corn costs pretty quick. But I wanted to go through this because that's something that's really, like I said, cheap and easy. You can get 6 traps. You can run them really easy in conjunction with other things you're doing for less than $100 easy, and kind of get a feel for trapping. Get a feel for. I'm telling you, it's so exciting checking those traps every morning and waiting to see what you caught. If you go this far, you might as well be planning on how you're going to spend that extra money to get into it, because it's just so much fun. But let's talk about these traps right quick, because like I said, they're so simple and easy to use, and very they're not easy enough for kids to set, but it's simple. The kids can bait them and really get them involved too, which is. That's just a great aspect to me. Anytime you can get kids involved with doing stuff outdoors, I like that. So, this is a Z trap. So there's probably by now dozens of different models of dog-proof traps, and of course they all have different costs and have different features. And you can go up to $15-16 a trap with these. But what I would recommend is just starting out. If you're really just wanting to kind of test the waters and see what you think, Duke sells a dog-proof trap, and Dukes typically are the cheapest traps on the market. Duke sells a good dog-proof trap that you can buy. So I priced them in a couple different places just to give you a feel for what cost you could be looking at. So you can actually buy Duke dog-proof traps online from Amazon. They're sold individually for $16.95 each, with free shipping. So that's definitely something to take into consideration. Then you can also buy them from a different buyer for $135 a dozen, and that's with free shipping. So that's a pretty darn good option. I say that a lot of people feel a lot more comfortable. You don't have to go through setting up a new account or anything like that. Everybody's got an Amazon account pretty much set up, so you can just one click and all your information's in there and you're done. Personally, I like to kind of support the trapping industry, and so buying from some of these other buyers. That's just me. But if you're just getting started, that can be a great way. Like I said, everybody's already on Amazon. You pull the app up on your phone, one click purchase, and you got some traps coming your way. So that is one option, and it's very economical option, probably the most when you factor in shipping. And pretty much any trap and supply company is going to carry DogProof Traps and the Duke DogProof Traps. But I just pulled up, when I punched it in, I just pulled up the first few that showed on my search. Snare Shop sells them for $12.38 each, or $127 a dozen, which works out to be like $10.62 a dozen. Minnesota Trap Line for $12 each, or $120 a dozen. Fleming sells them for $11 each, and that's just flat $11 each, whether you buy one or a dozen. Excuse me. And like I said, everybody else sells them, but you can see for the most part that they're right around that $10 to $12, depending on how many you buy. And you can, most places you can buy one, you can buy 6, you can buy 12, or anywhere in between. Typically with trap and supply places, if you're buying in a half dozen or a dozen increments, you're going to get a little bit of a discount per trap. And this is the one great thing about these is, and the Dukes, this is a Z-Trap, but the Dukes are very similar. They're powder coated, so you don't have to worry about dyeing, painting, anything like that. They come and they're ready to go. You've just got to have some way to secure them. And so the easiest way is to have an extension cable. And that's just a piece of 3/32, or in some places you can find this heavy duty with a 1/8 inch cable. But that makes it to where you can just wrap the cable around the tree. And depending on, I actually made these. I made them specifically for my DogProof traps, and they have a big end on one end that I can put the set trap through. So once I attach my extension cable to my chain, I never have to take it apart, and I like that. But a lot of places don't sell them with the open end. Some places will sell them with an adjustable end, which is really nice, but some of them are just fixed ends, and they're fairly small. So if you can find them with the large end, then you can just set the trap, loop it around the tree, feed it through, put the trap in the ground, and I'll show you setting this up in just a minute, but you can do that and you're ready to go. If you buy extension cables that just have the small ends, you can use these screw-on quick links. You can also use, I know the Hoosier Trappers guys, I've never used them, but they use those large rings. The large, like a key ring. I can't remember what snap ring, not snap rings, but I've never used them, but they use those a lot, and I don't, that should work just fine. And you're just using it to attach the end to your swivel. And then if you've got some S-hook tools, an S-hook tool, you can use a J-hook in the end of your swivel to hook it right to there too. But in those cases, what I would do is loop your extension cable around the tree, feed it back through the loop itself, and then attach your trap to the end. That way, you've got to stake your trap somehow. And so you can buy disposable stakes and drive those in. You can use rebar if you want to. You can use trapping wire and tie it off. But these cable extensions are the easiest way. You just loop that thing around the tree, pull it through, and it's done. You don't have to worry about it, and it's good and secure. And so I looked up the cost of those too. And several different places sell those. You can get them on Amazon. They're actually sold through Dakota Line Snares, and you can get them on Amazon for $18.50 a dozen with free shipping. So that's a little bit of a high price for the extension cables themselves. But when you throw in free shipping, because unless you catch a special, most of the trap and supply places don't offer free shipping. So if you're close to one, you could probably get a little bit better deal. If there's any way you can avoid the shipping, typically you can get a better deal going straight to your trap and supply dealers. Snare Shop sells them for $12 a dozen, and they a lot of times they'll come in a lot of different lengths. I prefer about a 6-foot length. That's good enough because a lot of times you can find a fairly small tree to wrap it around, and that still gives you 4 to 5 feet to play with so far as putting the trap in the trail or something like that. But sometimes, the only option is a large tree, and a large tree takes up a lot of cable. So, they sell them in 2, 4, and 6, and 8 a lot of times foot increments, And to me, that 6 foot is just about right. And a lot of times what I do is I'll use old beaver snares if it's not too bad kinked up, and those are usually 5 foot. And you'll have to, if you usually have to lose the last 6 to 8 inches depending on your catch. But getting back to the task at hand, F&T sells some for $15 a dozen, and then Fleming sells them for $16.50 a dozen. And so you're looking at on Amazon for a dozen traps and the cables, the extension cables, you're looking at about $155 shipped. So that's not bad at all. With the snare shop, and I didn't look up their shipping. Shipping varies. Usually, a lot of times with trap and supply dealers, it's more based on the amount, the total checkout amount. So if it's over $100, it may be $15. If it's over $200, it may be $20. Something like that is kind of tiered that way. So Minnesota, the shipping was going to be, which I don't think I don't think I found extension cables on Minnesota's site. That's one thing that I'm a little bit disappointed with. But most other places, Minnesota is $120 a dozen for the Duke traps, and then $25 shipping. So there again, you're getting there at that $140, $145, $150 range. And like I said, all the other ones are going to be pretty close in there. Shipping's probably going to vary a little bit. Fleming, if I pulled it up right, it was $10 shipping. So $11 each, you get 12 of them. That puts you at, say, $11 each. You get 10 of them. That puts you at $111. And then $16.50 for the extension cable. So it's $126, and then $10 shipping, so $136. So Fleming is actually a pretty good deal. Well, that's only if you get 10, not 12. So 12 would be $122, $133, and then your $16.50. So it'd be right about $152. It actually would probably work out to be a little bit cheaper than Amazon. So anyway, that's, like I said, if you're wanting to dabble in it a little bit, maybe your kids have asked about it, and you've got a little place there. Even if you don't have like a hunting club, but you've got a little place behind the house. If you keep cat or dog food, you got a few acres, odds are there's some raccoons nearby that you could catch. So you don't have to, unlike with the coyote traps, you don't have to treat these initially. Now, once they start, you can see here, once you make some catches, they're going to get scuffed up. This one is actually weathered pretty good. It's got a little bit of the powder coat missing, but for the most part, these should probably go a couple years unless they get real bad beat up without needing to be treated with anything. And even then, instead of waxing or boiling, dyeing, waxing, and things like that, you can just spray paint them and call it good. So real low maintenance, real easy to use. And then the bait, man, this year I had great luck with large marshmallows and caramel syrup. These marshmallows are $1 a bag. This caramel syrup was like $2, I think. And so I just, every set, I'd use 2 marshmallows. I'd stick one under the trigger. I also used some of the small marshmallows, but I had issues with stuff stealing the small marshmallows and not firing the trap. So I went to using one marshmallow under the trigger. That way, if that marshmallow comes out, that trap's going to fire. And then give a squirt of the caramel syrup down, and then put my other marshmallow right there on top to add a little bit of eye appeal. Then probably, if I was a little ways from the trail or where I thought the coons were going to be traveling, I'd give a squirt of caramel syrup right there on top and then shoot it off to where my trail was. And I had really good luck excuse me, catching coons this year like that on a cheap and easy bait and some cheap and easy traps to run and check. So I'll take you out now and show you just how easy these things are to set and set up. And like I said, if you're interested in wanting to dabble, I think this is the ticket to kind of testing your toes in the trapping water and seeing if it's something that you really want to move forward in and get going in. So here's my setup. I got my DogProof trap attached to my extension cable, and this extension cable's probably about a 4-foot extension cable. This was an old snare cable, but I'll set my trap. I'll put my large marshmallow under my trigger, and that can take a minute just because of the size of the marshmallows, but they'll go pretty well under the trigger pretty easy, or on the trigger itself. Then turn the trap into my thumbs and squeeze the springs with my fingers to depress and get my
get my dog locked in place. Then I'll take the large end of my extension cable, or just one end of my extension cable if I don't have it attached to my trap. And I just loop the extension cable around the tree. See, this is probably, what, a 3-inch diameter tree. Plenty big enough to hold a coon. One thing you want to make sure of is it's not too small that they could, maybe get up over the top of it or pull the snare off, pull the cable off. But it's attached. So if you used one of the extension cables where you couldn't put the trap through the end, you would feed it around, loop it in through the end loop, and then you would have your other end that you're going to attach to the trap swivel by a big ring. I wish I could think of the name of those rings, but a snap ring or like a quick link. And then all you're going to do is just shove it in the ground. And in hard ground is easier, is what I found, is if you get to setting these like on a creek bank right by the creek, a lot of times the soil is too soft really to do that effectively. If you're better off if you've got much of a bank there, go on top of the bank, on the high bank, and try to push it into some real solid soil, because that way it holds and it doesn't move if they come in and try to grab the bait. If it's in real soft ground, they may pull and the whole trap may move. So I got my marshmallow down there. Say my creek bank or road or feeder is right over here. Just going to give a little squirt of caramel down the trap and a little trailing scent going off the side there. And then I'll take my other marshmallow, put it right there on top, and it's ready to go. I mean, 5 minutes you can have a couple of these in and on to the next location. Really good, effective way to quick and easily catch raccoons. So if you're interested in trapping, go find you a 6, 8, 10, 1, 2, ever how many of these DogProof traps, and get to setting them. And I think you're going to be hooked on trapping if you do, because it's a lot of fun, I can promise you. Good luck. We'll see you next time.